It's long been said that storytelling is the most powerful way of putting new ideas into the world. So let's start with a story. Ecolab, a global water technology company, had a well-established market position, providing a 2-week off-site lab test for the detection of Legionella, a bacteria that can cause a deadly pneumonia similar to COVID-19. An innovation team at Ecolab came up with an idea to transform this slow test into a rapid test that customers could perform on-site themselves within 10 minutes. But when they went to pitch this idea internally, they were met with a lot of pushback. Colleagues in operations feared that this new technology would disrupt a stable revenue stream and devalue existing infrastructure. Adapting and refining the innovation story is what ultimately led the team to get the green light that they needed to proceed. They restructured their messaging around 2 key storylines. 1, think of the value that's created for the customer in terms of time and risk avoidance. And 2, if we don't do this, someone else will. The stories that we tell about our innovations hold the potential to make or break the adoption, success, or failure of innovation initiatives. Little empirical evidence exists to date around storytelling and the role that it plays in the innovation process. That's why our team of PhD-level professional and scientific writers conducted interviews with 80 innovation leaders, gleaning their perspectives on storytelling, its importance and role within the innovation process. From scientists and engineers to chief technology officers and chief innovation officers, our interviewees had at least one thing in common. They all affirmed the central role that storytelling plays in every phase of their innovation process. Our team is publishing these 80 interviews weekly on the Untold Stories of Innovation podcast, and we're analyzing the qualitative data to draw out key takeaways. Today, I'm excited to share 4 key insights from our research and to end with an invitation for you to join this initiative. Let's get started with the insights. Insight 1, storytelling inspires and unifies innovation cultures. Several of our interviewees reflected that nothing can kill a great idea faster than organizational misalignment. Storytelling, they said, is an important mechanism for building a shared understanding of how we define innovation for our innovation teams and across the entire institution, and how we uphold key priorities, beliefs, and values. Take John Deere. Pushpa Manukanda is the director of the John Deere Technology Innovation Center at Ames. And in our interview, she said, quote, "The first thing that I always share with new employees is the fact that we are connected to those linked to the land. If the work that we do does not impact their lives, then it's not purposeful." She uses storytelling to remind and instill the cultural attitudes, beliefs, and institutional histories most valued at John Deere. Several interviewees described how storytelling within onboarding presentations, ideation sessions, innovation pitches, or informal team conversations, and even formal leadership messages offer an opportunity to uphold the values and beliefs that drive their innovation culture. Insight 2, storytelling is itself a mechanism for creating and soliciting innovative ideas, both internally and externally. For example, when the idea of open innovation was first introduced at NASA, it was pretty controversial. The subject matter experts pushed back, saying, how could an everyday person or an expert in a different discipline have significant influence on our outcomes? It was not until NASA is able to effectively share at a small and a global scale all of the stories of success emerging from everyday people who were contributing innovative ideas to NASA's most challenging problems. It was at that point that open innovation could be genuinely adopted and scaled. Externally, when innovation stories are shared across industries, innovators think of new ways to push the boundaries of what's possible in their own fields. Our interviewees shared stories about how a violinist uncovered a way to remove grease from a potato chip, and how the insights of a young Chinese chef inspired the strategic brand position of the Shanghai Disney Resort. Importantly, our data also indicate that success comes from practicing and playing out the many different ways of communicating an innovative idea and its potential. The story itself must be iterated and refined, changing up the plot line, the central characters, delivery, medium, and other elements will rapidly allow you to measure what works and what doesn't. Insight 3, Institutional Stories of Failure Accelerate Innovation. We have our team's collaboration with the IRI Brilliant Failures Research Group to thank for enhancing this part of our study. Stories of past failure encourage employees to learn from one another, avoid repeat mistakes, or bring new ways of thinking about old problems. Failure narratives can also, very importantly, create a culture that understands the innovation process is not as simple as going from point A to point B. It's often one step forward and two steps back. Teams pave the way for future leaps when they document past missteps. Building institutional memory around failure allows an organization to reflect on their progress with a new frame of mind. In our interview with PayPal's Senior Director of Innovation, Michael Tedasco, he expressed, quote, "When things don't work, you shouldn't just sweep it under the rug." His innovation team is currently building a miniature failure museum, a micro-scale model of the PayPal campus, infused with stories about products and approaches that didn't work. They're creating a physical graveyard of failed ideas to encourage employees to pull old ideas off the shelf and to continue to find new ways to approach old problems. Insight 4, innovation storytelling is an act of identity creation that motivates the innovator. Sharing stories of innovation is critical to projecting an outward identity for the organization itself. Shareholders and customers hear innovation stories and feel more confident that they chose the right investment or solution. So it's critical at the company level, especially as 56% of consumers actively seek to buy from companies that they perceive as being innovative. It's why we see such powerful external innovation storytelling from companies like GE, Lowe's, Nike, the list goes on and on. But let's also remember to look at the individual or the personal level, where innovation storytelling, in fact, creates a layering effect on our identities. There's much talk within the innovation community about how to empower all employees to see themselves as innovators, to be creative, inventive, and bold. At the most personal level, when a person can recall and reproduce stories about that time they came up with a great idea, or that time they collaborated across departments to see a problem in a new way, or pivoted at the right time, or shared a consumer insight in a way that transformed previous assumptions, that person is solidifying their identity as an innovator. When colleagues and leaders encourage and give feedback to those narratives, the innovator grows in confidence. That confidence is highly motivating, and the innovation process accelerates. There's much data to still unpack. We're currently designing a quantitative survey that will garner insights on the statistical significance, financial and personnel resources, and training commitments to innovation storytelling. Based on our content analysis thus far, we recommend the following for innovation leaders. Build a content strategy for innovation storytelling at your company or organization. Share innovation stories, successes, failures, processes, lessons learned, in alignment with your vision for what the innovation culture at your company should look like. Then, encourage your employees to share innovation stories too. Practice story crafting. Be iterative and adaptive to feedback and experimentation, and let your employees write shitty first drafts. Document and amplify innovation stories at the individual, team, and company levels to perpetuate the informal stories as well as the cultural narratives you most want to inspire. And finally, train your people in innovation storytelling and bring more visibility for the strategies, techniques, and skills available to support them in communicating their innovations effectively. There is an art and science to innovation storytelling. Our vision at Untold Content is that storytelling will no longer be perceived as a mystical or unempirical aspect of innovation, but rather an art form supported by evidence-based practices that are taught and discussed openly. Our team invites you to join the conversation about innovation storytelling by listening to the Untold Stories of Innovation podcast, nominating yourself or another innovation leader to be a guest on the podcast, and joining our research initiative to uncover the art and science of innovation storytelling. You can go to get.untoldcontent.com/IRI to join the conversation. Thank you.